All right, item 301, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 302, approval of tonight's agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 401, approval modification of the minutes from the November 20th Governing Board meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 20th Governing Board meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 501, approval of tonight's consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Part of the consent agenda, I wanted to thank the donation from the Church of the Epiphany for their donation. Moving on to 601, Celebrate Excellence. Dr. Driscoll.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Tonight I have a few items to celebrate. Curry Elementary recently invited retired teachers for a special lunch at the school. Although these teachers were former teachers stayed in touch, this special lunch was at Curry under the guidance of Principal Love. And each teacher had the opportunity to look at photos and memorabilia from the past while they also enjoyed lunch on the campus. I was happy to have the opportunity to stop by and greet each of our former teachers and give them TD3 t-shirts as a small token of appreciation for their years of service that they've given to Curry Elementary. It was pretty awesome. One of the ladies there actually worked with my mother-in-law. And so it's just a small world, but they have been meeting for, I want to say 15 years. Some of the teachers there started at Curry in 1979, and I didn't have the heart to tell them that I wasn't even born then, but it's just awesome that they stayed together and stay in contact with each other. Shamley School Nurse Patricia Thornton is the first ever recipient of the Undie Chest Barbara J. Burks Above and Beyond Award. Tempe Elementary Assistant Director Dr. Jennifer Ostrom nominated Ms. Thornton for this award. Ms. Thornton has been recognized for taking the time to get to know students personally and attending to their individual needs through relationship building. Ms. Thornton is known for going above and beyond and always puts the needs of students first. Thank you to Ms. Thornton for your decades of dedication to the Shamley students. Our newly formed Tempe hiking crew recently went on their first hike, completing 3.75 miles of the Secret and Desert Classic Loop Trail. Is that by Ahwatukee area, South Phoenix? Okay, I don't hike. You won't see me out there, but I'm glad you guys did. Thank you to our Chief of Employee Experience, Dr. Gwyneth Marr, for creating this great opportunity for TD3 employees to connect outside of work. And that is it for me for Celebrate Excellence for this week.
Item 701, Governing Board Report concerning November 6th, 2024 grievance proceedings. So I have a whole thing I have to read here. Pursuant to Governing Board Policy GBK, Staff Grievances, and Step 5, Implementing Regulation, the Governing Board is required to report its findings, including the reasons for action taken regarding the grievance proceedings from November 6, 2024. Following an executive session to conduct the Step 4 grievance appeal, the Governing Board took action to, 1, direct the administration to review and clarify Regulation IIBR to reflect the administration's current practices. 2, encourage site administration to share staffing and student data with teaching staff on at least a monthly basis at staff meetings. This action was the result of mutual agreement between the administration and the grievant that took place during the executive session. All right. 801, open call to the public. I have one blue card here, and so before we get to that, we're going to watch a video.
Persons wishing to address the board must fill out the Request to Address the Board card and submit it to the board's executive coordinator prior to the start of the board meeting. Per Governing Board Policy BEDH, Public Participation at Board Meetings, The governing board president shall set a time limit on the length of the comment period. For items on the agenda, individuals will be called upon when the item is introduced. For topics not on the agenda, citizens will be called upon during this portion of the meeting under Open Call to the Public. In compliance with the open meeting law, the governing board will neither discuss nor take action on items raised during this portion of the agenda. When necessary, issues will be taken under advisement and placed on a subsequent agenda. During the open call to the public, issues addressed must be within the jurisdiction of the board.
All right, I have a Dr. Raquel Ellis, and you can come right up to here at the front. You'll press the little button there on the mic to turn it green, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Hello, Dr. Driscoll, members of the board. My name is Raquel Ellis. I live in the Broadmoor community. I am a proud Tempe kid, having attended Holdeman and Mosley. My grandmother was a lifelong Tempe elementary educator and actually taught at this very location when it was rural school 70 years ago. So that said, I now have my own 3-year-old daughter, and I'm truthfully a bit hesitant about sending her to school here, despite it being her home district and the place where her mother and grandfather attended and the place where her great-grandmother was a teacher. After reviewing your website, after multiple clicks was information about the curricular materials used to teach children how to read. Tempe Elementary uses the Harcourt Journeys program, which does not meet alignment to state standards, criteria by Ed Reports. I'm also concerned about the use of the reliance on the Haggerty program for developing phonemic awareness. A study completed by the Florida Center for Reading Research in the past year showed that even when students are using the same core phonics program, the use of the Haggerty program shows no difference in reading outcomes for students. So I want to tell you that my goal here is to not criticize you. I know that Tempe is an amazing district with a strong community, and I really just want us to do better for students in teaching them how to read. I have worked as the language arts curriculum specialist in the Kyrene School District for the past 10 years, and I would love to partner with you to make Tempe even better than it is. I'm really easy to get a hold of, and I hope this is the beginning of a conversation about improving reading outcomes for Tempe kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 901, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of a professional services agreement between Tempe Elementary Schools and Azura Literacy. Dr. Driscoll?
I'll have Ms. Grimaldi come up to the podium and share about this.
Good evening. This is a program similar to a program that we have approved earlier in the year. It's similar to Step Up Tutoring, where families are able to get virtual tutoring in reading literacy, and it is virtual. We have the devices for families. We have the hotspots for families. This is a branch of the Mesa United Way that is providing the funding free for families.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I reviewed this, it said they would provide mentors or tutors depending on if they had enough. How are they going to recruit if we get a lot of parents and kids signing up?
Well, as always, we're careful to pilot. So we're scheduled to pilot at Aguilar. So we keep it small to make sure we can adequately knock it out of the park at that school. And then we can always increase. The tutors are trained through America Reads, and so it is a well-established program. It is not something that is just informal. They have a very set curriculum. They have a very set training process, background check, even though the tutors never actually meet with the students individually.
Right, I saw that. I was hoping that more graduate students at this university down the road here would actually volunteer to do this. before they do their student teaching.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to add, I actually did, when I was an undergraduate, participate as a volunteer for the America Reads, America Counts program, tutoring and mentoring students in the Roosevelt School District before I became a teacher. So some of them may actually be possibly teachers in the future. And I really enjoyed the process. And yes, it was, we had training and background checks and whatnot, but it was, I got credit for it. But other students, get stipends and whatnot. So it just depends on what it was. So it was that's what made me want to be a teacher, to be honest, being able to connect with students. So.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Grimaldi, I just wanted to thank you for already preemptively letting us know about the hotspots and the laptops, since that's what we were going to ask. And I appreciate you already have that built into it. And if there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the professional service agreement between Tempe Elementary Schools and Azura Literacy.
Second?
I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. 9:02, discussion, consideration, and possible approval for the governing board to give Superintendent Dr. James Driscoll direction as to next steps for future planning and potential boundary implications for KA gifted programming, early childhood programming, and middle school career exploration. Dr. Driscoll.
Well, good evening again. All right, tonight I have a presentation, and me and Jen Nasabun will come up here and do this presentation, so we'll kind of tag team it. So first, I just want to be grounded in our strategic plan goal, and one of the big things we were looking at in this is identifying and reducing barriers that prevent our families from attending Tempe Elementary schools and programs, and strengthen our specialized programs and school options. So tonight, all we will be providing you with is options, and I've talked I might have talked to some of these parents via email or a phone, but one of the things I just want to make sure that we emphasize is that we're providing options for families, and so that's what we want to do. We want to provide you with options so that you can make the best determination of what educational option you want for your student, and so everything we do today and present to you is us giving you guys options and giving parents options to choose great things that are happening here in TD3. On November 8th, this looks different than mine. On November 8th, the Tempe elementary voters approved a $196 million bond. The community had attitude and opinion surveys, and one of the things they talked about in that was, one, safety and security, two, looking at school facilities in our middle schools between Rover, Fees, Curry, Connolly. And so at one of our last board meetings, we talked about having Connolly and Curry be schools that we're going to be rebuilding. On November 1st of 2023, we had a demographer come in. And one of the big takeaways from that meeting was how the district responds to choice will dictate how the district's enrollment goes. And so for the people in the audience and the people watching us online on YouTube, our enrollment has been declining in this district for the last 10 years. We're down 20% from 2014. And in the gifted world, we're down 38% in that same time frame. And so how we respond to choice will be what dictates how our community, how our district actually keeps having kids in seats. So we want to make sure that we are provide options for our families to make choices, because right now we're capturing about 68% of the students who live in our boundaries. And so that's 32% of our students who are choosing to not come to our schools. And so we want to retain our students, but also offer options for those 32% who are not choosing us, that there are options in our district that they can choose. On December 6th, 2023, the governing board approved to direct me to take these next steps. At this meeting, this is a much condensed list than what you guys actually said. I believe at the meeting I said, if you want me to do all those things, it's going to be much longer than a year. So the things we looked at is revisiting boundaries, which we did last year. We looked at exploring early childhood centers that are pedagogically sound, which I want to say Ms. Windsor made a point to emphasize, build a more robust gifted program and explore other specialized options, and address middle schools, including career exploration. On April 17th, we had representatives from Terracon who did a thorough analysis of our school facilities and gave recommendations about our school facilities, their usage, and that kind of led us to the decision to do Connolly Curry. And then on June 12th of this year, I gave a presentation about a phase plan for how we can achieve the goals for exploring our early childhood center, building a more robust gifted program, and addressing middle school career exploration. All right. This is different than my slide, so I'm just gonna go off of my own. The options that we have in TD3 for gifted education, we have PACE at pretty much all our elementary schools. And then we have a self-contained program, Aspire, that services 6, 7, 8 at Connolly. And 3 years ago, we started Aspire at Arredondo with a 4th grade section, and then we expanded that to a 5th grade section, and then this year it has 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And so one of the things dating back to 2015 strategic plan is our community has asked for pathways. When I got here, people asked, like, why do we have Aspire at 6, 7, 8, but we don't have a self-contained option in any of our elementary schools? And so I looked into that, and we tried and did, and I think Aspire at Arredondo has been a success for some of our families. It's providing them with options for their students. Our current reality. In 2021 school year, coming out the pandemic, we had ESSER funds, and one of the things that I share with the board is that I wanted to do what was called talent development. And we really had a focus is, in our district, we had students that when we exposed them to a higher level of educational experience in the works that we do in our gifted programs, they actually qualify for gifted. To the tune of 84% of those students. And so we used ESSER funds back then to actually expose more of our students to that level of programming and instruction so that we could have more students qualify. We expanded Aspire from not only 6, 7, 8 to now 3 through 5th grade. We also expanded our gifted identification services. So this year alone, we blanket tested all our 2nd and 4th grade students for gifted. And so that was something that we hadn't done in years past, but we're really trying to reduce the barriers for our students and provide opportunities and access to that programming. We did outreach to families regarding student gifted qualification. So before this year, we didn't really notify parents that their students qualified for Aspire at Connolly or Ward or McCamey. This year, we sent out to all our 5th grade families, your student qualifies for all of this. I know we had a lady from Kyrene that I won't say the school district to the south, but you are TD3. You said your schools, go TD3. But even there, we had a family who actually registered at McCamey this past week who left our district, went to that district down south. We sent that letter and they came back and are going to enroll in McCamey. And so opening up those options and notifying parents that your students are actually eligible for all these wonderful programming that we had was another way of how we reduce these barriers. We did talent development and we continue to do that. And then gifted education development programs in our Title I schools. Pretty much most of our schools qualify for Title I funding, if not all. And so we wanted to make sure we're providing that access for families to those supports. Here again is our options. And so while we recognize that there are a full continuum of services for our gifted students, we also know that every gifted student is different and they're unique. And so we want to provide as many options to capture that uniqueness in all the things that we do. And so one of the things, as I told parents, and I just want to put it on the record, we're not asking the governing board or recommending to the governing board to close Aspire for Connolly 6, 7, 8. I know I think I got a student email who emailed me, and I want to make sure, I think her name was Nicole. And so Nicole, if you're listening, I would not ever want to move you out of Connolly. That's the school they started in. And so our recommendation would be that our students that are at Connolly Middle School right now, they should finish at Connolly Middle School. Now I would tell all the parents here, that they need to know that Connolly is actually planning to be rebuilt. So there will be some construction at some point in the next 2 years. And so that will be displaced students, give or take. But our goal is for all our students that are currently at Connolly Middle School to finish at Connolly and Aspire, and as well as students there. So I want to make sure I put that on the record for them. One of the things we do have, and I want to reiterate, is that we will continue to offer services for gifted at all our schools, all our middle schools. And so if parents choose a self-contained option for their student, that will be their choice, and then we'll provide them with electives. We understand that when you have a K-8 school, electives, there are less electives than at a school that has 900 students. We get that. And for some of our families, they will have to make that choice that I want my student to get their gifted services and be on a comprehensive middle school with all the electives, or I want my kid to be in a self-contained setting, knowing that they're going to be limited in electives, but they're also going to be exposed to peers just like them as well. And so that is for the families to choose, not us. We're just providing them those options. But either option they choose, we will provide services for them and also provide elective options for them as well. So this last slide I will talk about is just like what we want in terms of expansion for gifted. And so opportunities and transformations, intensity and unique needs, and really just looking at students and providing them with all the supports necessary for them, individual level and abroad. We want to really increase their engagement, emotional resilience, attention to the depth and breadth of the abstractions and access to intellectual peers, purpose and pace, and then acceleration / compacting. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jen to talk about our recommendations.
Thank you. We've got some exciting things going on. I just want to start by saying I think it was Monday, I was talking to somebody who's completely outside of the education sector, in fact, not even in Arizona. And they said, oh, Tempe Elementary? And I said, yes. And he said, wow, they're really forward thinking. I keep hearing that this district is doing some really forward-thinking things for their community. And I said, well, yeah, that's why I said yes. And so I just want to lead with that because I was listening to you talk about all of the options and all the ways that we really are looking at expanding those. And I think it's fantastic. So it's exciting. I forgot I was in control here. Okay, so I just want to kind of reiterate what we did. Remember, in every one of these 3 initiatives, we built criterion and we put those criterion into 4 buckets. And that's because every one of these options, whether it's early childhood or expanding gifted or the middle school career exploration pathways, those require very different kinds of facilities and very different demands on the ground, and also impact other things like the neighborhood. And so we really spent some time first thinking about what do each one of these programs require in order to really be successful, and also make sure that we are attending to all the factors that make them accessible and then remove those barriers. So that's where all the criterion came from. And so buildings and grounds for gifted programming, I just wanted to highlight a couple of the verbiage for the criteria, because when we looked at each one of our sites, we did factor in things like the acreage. Is there room for expansion for future planning? We also factored in things like the number of classroom spaces and what's the opportunity there for electives for our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So that was one of the criteria. And then we really did look at how it was going to impact our neighbors too, because we have that relationship. And when you have potentially 600 K-8 students who are in effect 100% open enrolled, your traffic patterns change. And so we needed to look at things like drive lines and what is happening at certain times in the day in those neighborhoods that might be impacted by the influx of open enrollment traffic. So all of those pieces came into play. And then I wanted to put some examples up about kind of the location and the impact on TD3 families and show the weight of those. So really looking at removing barriers and increasing access, that requires transportation. And so to get students to each one of these sites, we really needed to determine where is the likelihood that our busing situation could in fact help get students to this program? And then we also needed to look at, well, what if families are bringing their own child? How close are these sites to thoroughfares? That's for you, Dr. Driscoll, to thoroughfares, and how close or far away from the, the main arteries are they? So we factored all of that in. We also looked at the identification and what happens if you start to move students off of one campus, if they choose this K-8 Gifted Academy, what happens to the campus that they leave? What opportunities does that open up for students who are there, who might be in that next tier of students who could really benefit from some gifted services as well. So all of that was really a piece of the work that we did. And then whether or not the nearby schools, if it is that site, are there possibilities for our families? Can they absorb, and are they really robust possibilities for our families to stay in district if they are not at the K-8 Gifted Academy? So any questions about kind of where those criteria came from? So these are the top 3, and this is the only initiative where you'll see 3. The other 2 initiatives, there's just the top 2, and that's because sites 11 and 12 were in fact tied. And so they're both up there. Site 11 is Shamley, and site 12 is Aguilar. I don't know why I just lost that, sorry. And so I want to talk about each one of those. Both of those schools meet the building and the grounds requirements for a K-8 Gifted Academy. I mean, you know what those schools look like, so you can imagine that. However, they have a less desirable impact on our families. And in the case of Shamley, where it's located, it's not centrally located, so it's harder to move kids to that school. It's also harder to relocate students who would have to move from Shamley. So that's something to consider if we decide to go that route. Also, in terms of a location, there are fewer potential partners up there where Shamley is. Yes, it's close to ASU, but there's a lot of other potential partnerships that you don't get that proximity. And then in terms of Aguilar, again, when you get down to the impact on families, a lot of those, or some of those students at Aguilar have been relocated recently already. There's also a specialized program there, and that was a really big factor for us is, are we displacing specialized programs with this decision? So that would be something else that we recommend you'd consider. And then in terms of location, it is actually tucked away in a spot that is harder to get to in terms of that traffic impact, and also harder to get to in terms of bus routing from all of our sites. So those are the things to think about with those 2 sites. And then when you look at site 13, which is Arredondo, you'll see that they kind of meet all of those criterion. And the difference in the impact on families for Arredondo is primarily because there is a percentage of students that are already identified as eligible to receive gifted services, which means fewer students to relocate. There's also lots of options in that area for families who choose a different option. Any questions about that? Okay.
Early childhood. So currently right now we have kinder preps, Tempe peer programs, and Montessori for our early childhood options. We have them spread out through various locations in our district with Frank and Nevitt for kinder prep and Rover, and then also our Tempe P program that is run with our partnership with the city of Tempe. And then our peer programs, we have that at Frank, Getz, and Nevitt, but one of the things I would tell you that we have a hard time of is actually getting peers to actually attend, especially at Getz. And so one of the driving forces is that if we had a early childhood center that we had Getz services that we provide for students that receive special ed supports, but also have other programming there, we could have peers there and wouldn't have to try to manufacture getting peers there because they would all be in one location. And so with that, I will turn it over.
Picture says, picture 1,000 words right there. They're little, they need different things, and in fact, there's laws around that, right? So there is not a single site in our district that would not have to have some level of modifications in order to be in compliance with the buildings and the grounds suitable for the needs of 0 to 5-year-olds. So just go into that knowing that. However, we did look, in this case, for schools that were built for a smaller capacity, so less than 500. We also looked at the location in terms of if you're bringing your infant or your toddler to a location, what are those pieces that you're really looking for in terms of comfortability and assurance and trust? And so we looked at neighborhoods versus commercial areas, schools that were more in neighborhoods. And then we also looked at kind of that serviceability. So I want to point out that when Dr. Driscoll is talking about the options, we did spend a lot of time looking at where our private and public providers are already, because there's a market share, there's a potential there for a draw back into the district if we can provide those services. And then also, I will tell you that each one of those little orange and black icons, there's info that's attached to it in this map. Nobody in the public sector that's surrounding us is providing that infant or that 0, 1, 2. Most of it's 3, 4, and 5. And so we have a real potential here to give back to our community. I mean, that's real access and that's real removal of barriers. And then I looked at the census report, and the projections for where our 0 to 5-year-olds are likely to be are in those two concentrated areas. Certainly impacted by, building and things like that might be going on, but that's where they are. So your top two schools for that actually are tied, and site 17 is Evans, our Evans property, and site 18 is Carminati. And you can kind of picture they're divided by a freeway, otherwise geographically they're relatively similar. In site 17, Evans case, there are 0 TD3 students that we would have to relocate. However, there are some trusted partnerships there, and that's a revenue source that we'd need to factor in if we move forward with that. Also, it's a little bigger than we need it to be in terms of the facility. In looking at site 18, Carminati, everything else that kind of stands true for Evans is right there, but then you're talking about relocating families. However, I know that there's been a lot of work done already, and that there's some really exciting options for families that would move out of Carminati to make way for an early childhood center. Questions on that? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing that I've heard a couple times that I can sense energy in the room, and when we use the word relocating families, relocating kids, we're not asking people, right now we've talked about the gifted programming, and we're talking about how we're trying to answer the need that our community has been asking us about early childhood, 1, development, and 2, help in families, right? Like, we're reinventing the way that we're trying to help Tempe families be Tempe families and help their kids be safe and learn. So with that said, when you talk about relocating, we will not be asking any families to relocate or to move. We are going to be giving them options of other programs, correct? Or how, what?
For the early childhood center?
Well, for either. Like, I just keep hearing the word relocating, and I know that it's stressing some, and it's stressing me out a little bit. That's why I'm asking the question.
It stressed us out when we built the criteria, and that's why there's so many of them related to that.
And you guys have done an incredible job. One, I do want to preface this, that this is amazing. The fact that you looked at other businesses, the businesses that are already taking care of things in the neighborhoods, the families who need it, where you guys have even gone down to where more people are being born, what areas, what income levels can't afford the daycare that's in their area. This is amazing what you guys have done, and I'm extremely excited about it. But I want to make sure that people know that we're not closing anything, and we're not telling them that there's not going to be something for them. So can you rework that word relocating?
I am using the wrong word.
Okay, help me.
We prefaced actually all of this with the impact it might have on boundaries. And that's a real story for families. And just in my experience as a site leader and as a teacher and as a mom, it is a huge decision. When you have a district that starts to offer choice to the degree that we're talking about, you are asking families to make a really difficult choice. And one of the things I always say is it's a difficult choice because it should be. It's really important. What you choose for your children is important. And so it really is about rebounding an area and not relocating. So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
All right, our current reality. So the last one we'll talk about is middle school and programming and career explorations. And so one of the things I will share with this, and it kind of goes to that elective, and I shouldn't share this because this is public knowledge, and we have a person from the South in this meeting. But one of the things, she is a TD3 person though, so I'll let it slide. All right, one of the things that we have with electives is it's really location bound. And so when you think of the electives, like it's at a school, depending on how many students you have at that school, dictates how many electives you have. But if I'm at Mosley and I want culinary, but they don't offer culinary, I don't get culinary. And so I don't have that as an option. And so when we looked at this middle school career exploration options, we know that our students eventually will be in a career. And so what if, close your ears, Kyrene person, what if, that's true. Do we have a lawyer in the room that can write up an NDA really quick? I saw somebody touch somebody. Hey, if you can make that happen, I don't know if legally we could get her to sign it, but okay, I digress. All right, but what if that regardless of your zip code, as long as you were in the TD3 boundaries, not Kyrene, but in the TD3 boundaries, we had a place where your student could go and explore and have options of different electives. And you weren't bound by the school you were at. You had a school that had all the different electives that you possibly want, and every kid in our district could go there. That's what we're talking about here, is eliminating that, what I would say, that lottery that I live in the right zip code or I chose the right school and I can get culinary or I can get robotics or I can get this. It would be no need. All you would need to be is a TD3 student, not a Kyrene, a TD3 student. And so with this model, what we were looking at is like, how can we change the game for our students and our families that they now have the option to be able to choose different career pathways. And this will be ever evolving because we know careers change. We know today, like semiconductors and engineering is that, but 10 years from now, it could be something different. And so if we created a space that all our students had access to and we provided the transportation to, and so all you had to do is get to school. You get to school, we would get you there, and part of your day, you would actually explore and be able to go through career. And it's all aligned to state standards. So if you're doing engineering, you're doing math standards, you're doing science, all that's built in. And really, our kids get to explore and go to high school and have an idea, like, I think I might want to do this, and then have a pathway to go. And so that's what we're looking at with the middle school career exploration option. It's one of the things that are near and dear to my heart, because one of the things I've heard from our community time and time again is they don't like our options at middle schools, and it breaks my heart. I was at a community meeting, and a grandparent came up and said, I won't send my kids to your middle schools. And I'm the superintendent of TD3, and I'm like, well, you say that today, I'm going to make it where you want to beg to come to our middle schools, because what we do there is so dang important that you want your kids to be there. And so with that, I'll be quiet. I will turn it over and let her go.
So clearly, the acreage and the building needs would be very different. You're talking about some very specialized spaces. And in terms of proximity to partnerships, we were really looking at externships, internships, micro-credentials, all kinds of pathways for kids. We also looked at where are their options after us? So the proximity to those partners as well. So all of that became a part of the criterion for the grounds in the building. And then the location and impact is pretty significant, because we are talking about a middle school where that's where these happen. That's where the career exploration pathways happen. And kids are coming in from all of our other middle schools to that for those options. And so when we drilled into it, I will just tell you, of the top 5 matches, for this one, we looked at every single property. Oh, I didn't look at Brogan, but all for the top 5, there was one elementary school in that top 5, and the others were all middle schools, mostly because of their sheer size and also the acreage, but in a lot of cases because of their location as well. And so these 2 schools, Site 22 is Mosley, and Site 23 is Fees. And they're kind of like rotated. So in both cases, the buildings are really good matches. And in fact, right now, there's some potential for the buildings as they exist, but we also looked at what can we do, what are the possibilities for retrofitting, for rebuilding, for renovating. Obviously, Mosley is renovated and beautiful, and there's not much we'd have to do there, but fees, we'd have to really look at what does that look like if we decide this is where the career explorations pathways would be. And then the impact for families is really different for Mosley than it is for fees, primarily because of where it's located and where those options would be. So what questions can I answer for you on middle school career explorations?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, for high school kids that go to EVIT here in the East Valley, would this be sort of like a mini EVIT for middle school kids?
I don't want to say mini or even. I would say it would be, God, sometimes I wish some people weren't in this. Please don't share this information. It would be a one of a kind in the country. I've seen high schools that provide this, but I haven't seen a middle school version of this. And with the caveat that we would build it to be ever changing, because what happens is we build these facilities and then they're stuck and they can only be this, where we know the careers are going to change. And when we look at it, we're not looking at just the first 5 years, we're looking for 20, 30 years down the road. So to have that flexibility, that as careers and different things change, that we have the flexibility to do that. Part of some of the reasons why we created an innovation enterprise was that I knew that we would need to be forward thinking and in our instructional practices and curriculum design to create programming that doesn't exist right now for students next year and the year. And how can we embed all our state standards into that so that when students leave, they're actually getting their state standards as well as their interest and exploring, being able to be exposed to careers that they don't even know exist is a powerful thing for our students. And when they leave us, to have that knowledge for their families to be able to say, oh, I didn't even know this career existed and I'm like interested in it. And now we would touch our Tempe Union brother and say, hey, we need to provide this pathway for our students because they want it and they've been getting it. And so I think it'll be just a really cool thing and great thing for our students. So. Go ahead.
Can I jump in? I just want to add that there's also a really cool possibility for our teachers as well related to this, because there's some passion out there in our teachers that doesn't always find its way into the classrooms, and there's a possibility there to build some pathways for them as well to enter this realm.
So I hope I answered your question, Mr. Lynn.
I think you did, particularly, you know, I'm thinking about how you go about updating the space for a different career pathway and the infrastructure that you have to have, whether it's hoods for the cooking or laundry facilities for what have you, or the shop. I remember years ago we had a shop and we stopped doing that. And I'm sorry we did, but there weren't that many kids that wanted to take it or teachers that wanted to teach it. So, but I think there are a lot of people that would like to teach those career pathways. I think there's some opportunities for partnerships with a lot of professional organizations that would love to do that, to get into middle schools and help kids see what they do. And so you could kind of outline where you would go, whether you do an accelerated math or 3 sessions of cooking. I don't know, you know, all those different things, but I think it's an opportunity that we need to explore a little bit more and see what we could do to engage our other potential partners in the community, both public and private. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing that I want to say about all of this is that we're hearing the rhetoric around the country that public schools are bad and that public schools aren't doing the job to train our kids for the future. And frankly, we all know it right here. Our only job is to train our kids and love them so much that they want to be whatever they want to be. That's our job. And so this board has taken it very seriously on how to reimagine education. Our post-2020 scholars are so far ahead of all of us in the room. No disrespect, but these kids have already seen things that we have. It's taken, like, we don't even know that they've seen them, right? We don't know that it's out there. They know it's out there. They know potential that it's out there. They're in a learning mode. They want it. They need it. I was just at a meet and greet and speaker series with a robotics expert from MIT. And she said, Allison, these kids aren't ready for me or us. The rest of the world is ready for them. So when Dr. Driscoll, thank God many on this board hired him, I was grateful to be elected on this board because he's outside the box thinking. While many other districts, you're hearing them closing schools, ending programs. We don't have money for this. We don't have money for that. You know what? We don't have money to have culinary, to have music, to have drama, to have geology, to have shop, to have auto, to have a radio station at every single school. But you know what? We can be smart and try to figure out a way to find out what is our students and families wanting. That's number one. But number two, what businesses in our community are expecting us to deliver them people who are ready to work in their job force. That's our job. That's it. And so I understand change is scary and hard, but we're not asking even anybody to change. We're actually asking for you to see the potential. Like, it's time to rethink how we are taking care of our schools in this country. And I know that every single person in this room is in this room because they're totally vested and they're into that. And majority of us are parents, including me. And we want to see ways that we can start touching that inner child that makes them go, this isn't just about math. I hate math. This isn't just about reading. I am a horrible writer. But you know what? You might get them into something that makes them love math and they had no idea. And they're going to find a way of why and the reason for why they're learning what they're learning every day so that they can apply that to their daily lives. So something that I think this district has done that's been a little harder for most communities, because people are being told every single day on the news and every single day on YouTube and Twitter and or X or whatever the heck it's called. See, like, my kids are everybody, you all are ahead of me, and just even in that, is that we're not telling them what's going on. What we're doing is being extremely transparent, right? Like, we want you to know these processes that we're going through. We want to, as a board, we need you to tell us that you've done every bit of homework on how the buses are going to get in and out. We can tell the city traffic is going to be crazy at this time. Or right now, as many of you know, because I'm grateful that you passed a proposition that's going to be redoing our road structures, every single one of them, the city of Tempe. You don't think this isn't going to affect us? How are people going to drive? How are we reinventing our roads? We need to tell them, listen, we're building this academy. We're going to have 6 buses all day long. Boom, 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 boom. And we want to make sure that we don't slow down the city buses. And we want to make sure that we don't do. This is like a community big deal. So this isn't something that's happening tomorrow, right? I wish it was. I totally wish that I had like this magic power and this wand, and we knew that it was going to work and we could just go boop and do it. I'd be so excited. But at the same time, there's a lot of steps here that you all deserve. And the steps are: 1, that we've done our homework; 2, that we know it's going to be successful; 3, that we make sure that the city can handle it; and 4, that all of the parents in the community are involved. Am I right, Dr. Driscoll, that as we do these things, right now our work is to do all this homework, and a lot of people do this homework without you seeing it all, and sometimes that's better, right? Like, the more input we get or the more choices we get, I don't know, when I look at a catalog that's like 500 pages long, I get overwhelmed, right? I'm like, forget it, I can't even order from this thing. But if I look at 8 things to choose from, it seems to be my parameter, right? We are throwing so much at this community, because we are thinking all the time. I mean, for every one idea that Dr. Driscoll and his team are giving you, there was another 1,000. I guarantee you there was another 1,000 ideas that they already had. And they didn't give that to you.
I would say 998.
Okay, 998. So we want you to know where we're coming from and what we're thinking. And I know that there can be misinformation. So I know our channel and I know our meetings are really boring, but if you want to continue, like, please encourage people to watch these, because we want you to hear us. We want you to know what we're doing. We want to say that there was 17 options, that we got down to 4, that we got down to 3, and that is a lot of information. But it's because you deserve the transparency, and our community has been so supportive, and I'm so grateful that you guys have the trust. I mean, our employees have the trust in us. Our community has the trust in us, because you show us that by supporting us with the bonds and the overrides and coming out and helping our schools. So with that said, I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm very excited about this, because this is the future of our kids. Nobody else's. This is our future. And then they get to make their future for their families, right? So this is us. This isn't this board. This isn't these 5 people. Nothing's been decided. It's not a done deal. If I get another email that says this is a done deal, I'm gonna freak out. And the reason being is I'm not a done deal girl. There is no done deal with me. Dr. Driscoll will tell you that I pick his brain every single week, multiple times, and this board and all of us do. So nothing's a done deal. Like, all of you are going to have to and need to, and we're going to want you to participate. But I want you to see the excitement and where we're coming from, because we have the potential to actually, like, show not just Arizona, but the rest of the world that we're trying something out. We're taking a risk because we have the community support to take the risk. Some schools don't have any of the support, right? We are in a classic awesome situation, and I'm grateful to be able to take advantage of it. And you guys have done an incredible job with that. But I understand, I just want to make sure there's nothing that's done. This is all to be fully transparent. There will be forums to talk about it. There are some exciting things that are going to be happening. Our families want choice. Sometimes lots of choices, for me, is too much choice, right? It's like, oh my gosh, which you talked about today. Some of that can be, it's kind of confusing, or having families relocate, or having to choose between, like, I had them at this school, now why would I want to move them to this school? And then, oh my God, my kid's already comfortable here and they have their friends. For my son, he loves his school, he loves his friends, and anything that happens here would be a bonus if he chooses to do it. But if he doesn't, I'm grateful that he's in a wonderful place that we will continue to have the opportunity to stay and be at. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So with that said, I just want to thank you all. There's a lot of people working on this. I want to thank you for doing that. I want to thank the community for caring so much. I mean, some people wouldn't care at the level that you're caring, and I'm grateful for that. And I hope that you can get on the bandwagon with us on reimagining the future for our kids, because our future, as we see it, is old news, right? Like, we know, so a lot of us have our careers, we have our things that we're doing, we know where we're headed, we know what we're doing. These kids have no idea the potential for them. And I want to give them everything that I want to give Dr. Driscoll everything I can, so that he can inspire the kids to be able to do whatever they can and potentially want to do to take care of themselves and take care of their family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I've been trying to figure out what I'm feeling up here. I feel a whole lot of anxiety, and I feel a whole lot of excitement, but I don't feel any dread. So that tells me that we're probably on the right path. And I know that I tend to be a detail-oriented person, and in my mind, I find myself getting locked into the logistics of how are we going to make this happen, and how are we going to get the buses through downtown Tempe if we choose this side, and how are we going to do all this. But I think the way that you've laid out the presentation, the thoughtfulness behind choosing the sites and why we want the sites, and all of the competing variables that go into that, tell me that we can trust you guys in figuring out those logistics that will probably keep me up at night, but I'll email you. So, and I want to also say, because I've had now 2 children completely go through Tempe Elementary. I myself went through Tempe Elementary, and I have a son who is currently in Tempe Elementary, that I can see the gift that this is to a family. And I'm saying that because while all three of my children are similar in academic aptitude, they're incredibly diverse in their needs. And I can see, and I'm jealous, I can see choosing different routes for my children, even though we're the same family. And I am jealous that other families get to do it, but it's, that proverbial planting the tree for the future, right? And I just am so excited about the opportunities for families, future families, Tempe in general, especially the bringing together of business partners, of truly making education a community event, which I think is the big thing that we've been missing in the United States from the beginning of public education. And we've already, Grimaldi's just laid the foundation in so many ways for this to get the ball rolling, and the fact that we have so many partners who are like, let's do it. I mean, that is just so exciting that they have so much faith in us. For you guys are doing the work. We just get to say yay or nay. And I am truly excited about these opportunities from 0 to 8. And it's phenomenal. 8th grade, not 8 years old. So thank you very much for the thoughtfulness that went behind it. And I know that it was probably mostly you and not Driscoll, because he just has the ideas. But thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yes to all that, and thank you.
I had words on the slides, but you guys said them all, so I think I'm good.
With that said, we have to give next steps, and so.
Would it be identifying sites?
I believe that would be the case.
Yes, identifying sites, and then once you do that, the next steps would then their policy, JC, that we would have to go in and then notifying communities of possible potentials in that. And then that's when community can give like feedback. We have public meetings and stuff like that. So if you identify the sites that you want us to look further, potential sites you want us to look further at, then we will come back and then provide you with that, and then all the ramifications of those decisions, so that we can go to the next steps and then have community involvement. And that's one of the things that it's kind of a weird thing, and we don't do a great job with explaining. Is like the board has to give direction, and then once they give direction, then we start the process, and then we get community feedback, and then the board gets all that community feedback, and then they have to make a decision. And so that's why like it's nerve-wracking for families, because they're like, you're making a decision. Like, no, we're not. We're just saying, you give us direction, then we can do all that process to get the feedback, so then the board can actually make that final decision. So if you give us direction on the sites that you want us to look at, that would be what we would need. And then we would come back at a later board meeting and say, here's our recommendations based on those sites, and then this is all the ramifications, and then you would have to make a choice from there. And then that would dictate the process for the community, because the community would then have to give you input for those decisions before you make a final decision.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Driscoll, I just want to make sure that when we approve 9.02, that we are not saying that any current program would be stopped, and that any student wouldn't not be able to continue at their home school and the programs that they're in. Is that correct?
Yeah, really when you say with 9.2 is you would be giving us the ability to start exploring those options. And at those particular sites, then we have to come back to you. So you're not making a decision to say that anything is changing. You're just making a decision to say you can look further at these options.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. So tonight, we are just going to make a motion to allow you to further explore these implications. And so with that, I will make a motion to approve the governing board to give Superintendent Dr. James Driscoll direction as the next steps for future planning and potential boundary implications for K-8 gifted programming, early childhood programming, and middle school career exploration as recommended.
Second.
I have a motion.
Can you say which sites that you want us to do as recommended to look at?
So all of them that you referenced.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
So I see the angst that's happening, and I'm wanting to know, in order for a team to go forward with direction, they have to have a target. And while we're not saying tonight that these are the schools that will have it, we have to give them some sort of narrowing. Just like you outlaid, Ms. Ewers, about how we're breaking it down, the next step is to identify further research into these sites. And so what I'm believing we're being asked is to give them a target to further research, not that it's a done deal.
Correct. So if you said the board gives us direction to go with the number one option for gifted, Arredondo, the number one option for the early childhood, or the number one or two options, that would give us direction to then give you more detailed information, because those would be, we would have to factor in all those communities as well, and to give you that, to be able to do that feedback and all that as well.
May I recommend that we take them program by program instead of all three together? Okay. So,
Technically.
Second.
okay.
All right, I mean, if the initial motion by Monica doesn't have a second, then it just dies as it is. So, moving on. Yeah, so we can talk about the gifted sections individually. We have site 11, which is Shanley, site 12, which is Aguilar, and site 13, which is Arredondo. Site 13, by the little matrix thing, is the best of the three sites, but, hey, it's up for discussion here. What do you guys think? Monica?
Is there a way to do this that, I think it's still helpful to have choices that we can choose between, because otherwise I feel like if we only have information on one, that's not entirely helpful. So I know that there's a lot of interest, especially, again, this conversation didn't just happen this week or tonight. This has been happening as you look at our board meeting from 1 year ago. These were the target focus areas that we know is important to the community, that we also want to prioritize because we see the benefit for all students in our community. So I think there's been a lot of interest with the gifted program. I would highly recommend that we at least look at 2 sites, if not all 3.
Okay.
I would actually like to make a motion that we explore further the site of Arredondo based off of the neighborhoods and what they're able to manage and proximity to the central part of the district. So I would like to make a motion that that the district leadership team explore specifically Arredondo for further research.
All right, I have a motion by Charlotte for Arredondo specifically. Do I have a second?
I'll second
I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim.
Can I have some discussion?
Sure.
I like the idea of looking at all 3 of the sites, but we know some of them are going to be more expensive and some less. If we could have maybe a 10,000-foot level look at the cost for all 3 of the sites and then focus on Arredondo, that would be my preference.
Allison?
Can you feel me? I'm quiet. That's not good. Yeah, the gifted program is there's so much. I mean, I'm grateful that you got it down to 3. And I know that concentrating on 3 is a lot more time, concentration, work. But I'm with Jim on I need some, because I love these 3 locations, right? And now my plus for Arredondo is that we currently have the Aspire program there. And we have families going there, and we know that it's working, and it's a newer school, and we've got more ground, right? Aguilar and the dual language program is doing great. It's bringing in different types of families and different cultures, and so then I have a star and a star and a star and a star. And Shamley, the kids, the potential at Shamley, we're seeing every year is better and better and better because they're being given more opportunities than they ever were before. And the location is actually, I'm not helping. I almost, if we could the board decide like what thing is most important to us to make the next choice? Got any ideas, Dr. Driscoll? Would it be
I have
Monday?
some, I have some people who are not going to like me because it's going to be, well, why don't we'll give you the options for all three. We'll focus in on Arredondo in terms of, because for all three, because they actually have physical students there, we will have to work out like where would they go? And so it will be this big map in codes of where they're at and where they would possibly go and which schools that they will have to possibly attend. It's just, it can be done. I would say we looked at some of these options as well. It's just going to be a lot. So we can give you the 10,000 foot view of that. We could focus in on Arredondo and say the impact of this option, this is what it would be for students, parents, where we think schools they could possibly go to. And then the thing is Chamblee, I want to say Chamblee and Aguilar are like tied. So there's no like 2 and 3, they're like 2. They just have different point, they got the same point value, but different ways to get the points. Am I saying that right, Jen? So it seems like you want us to do all three. We'll figure out how to give you all three. Yeah.
I think it's just hard to make a decision tonight without the full view, and it feels like personally for me, if I pick one, that it sounds like we already made that decision. So whatever way, if there's a way to do maybe not the full in-depth that you would do for some of the others, but.
We'll give you all three. I think Cindy will be mad.
I mean, because if you had a recommendation, you could have just led with that, but it wasn't.
Well, they're tied. The two are so closely
So
tied.
which ones are tied? That are for number one?
Chamblee and Aguilar.
Chamblee, okay, so we just go with Chamblee and Aguilar then?
They're 2, like Arredondo's 1. So Arredondo is the best. If you were saying, hey, which one would you recommend? We would recommend Arredondo as the number 1 option based on location and all the factors that we did. But Chamblee and Aguilar, if you said, hey, give us more options than your first, those would be the next. That would be the second option would be those. And they both have pros and they both have cons. We can work it up and show you kind of the matrix of how those point values were total. So I think that's what we could do. We could do that and show you like, here's like, when we say families, this is how we rated the points for this and how they score that and why, like Aguilar, for instance, one of the things we worry about is they already have a program there. And so by displacing, if you say that, then you have to find a place for that program as well, which actually has students that are open enrolled in there. So then it's not, and then with Chamblee, it's great. It's a K-8 already, but it's at the north end of the district. And so when you try to think about like families, getting families there, if I'm at Rover to get my student all the way up there, that's just and so that's why like from a location standpoint, it wasn't really a great, though it fit in Matrix, it fits, but it's just, and so Arredondo, why it was ranked number 1 is that when you take away all those mitigating situations, it's actually in a centralized location for our district, in a nicer place than those. There's already students there because they have Aspire 325 and they have students that actually qualified at Arredondo as well. And just look, so we can give you, what we'll do is we'll give you point values for those, for all of them, so you can see how the points value and why they weighted there, so you can have that information. And then we will show you boundaries for Arredondo to say, okay, if you went with this is how it would impact those students for boundaries, because that was one of the primary things too of location and like least impact of families. So we could do something like that. I'm looking at you guys because we're going to have a great holiday.
And to be fair, like, I don't want to put that extra pressure, just.
No,
For
it's-
me, I don't feel comfortable picking one tonight, but.
It's our
And I'm
job
not
to
going to
do
be
that.
here, so I don't want to add that extra work. I'm not going to make the decision when, so.
It's our job to give you all the information
Yeah.
that you need so that you can feel comfortable to make a decision. And so you're not asking us, we can do it. We will do it.
If there's a way to make it not so intense that it's, I don't know. But
We
I
will
won't
do
be
it.
here, so it's, I guess it doesn't, it's for me, I don't want to add any more
Keep
stress.
throwing that out there.
Yeah, I will actually probably just abstain from this particular one.
Charlotte?
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I don't need any more information, and the reason why is because I've had to drive this. And my son was bused from Carminati to Arredondo for 2 years, and you wouldn't think that that's a very long drive, except for the amount of kids that you have to pick up. And if we have to go further north to Shamley, he's on that bus 1.5 hours easily. If we go to Aguilar, we displace a existing program, and that doesn't make any sense to me since that's been a hallmark of our district. So to me, it's not any more information than what you've already been given us. The price tag on here, I don't want to make a decision based off of money. I want to make a decision based off of where is it easiest for our kids to access a program. And we have to remember that Gifted is not going to be only offered at this location. We have a centralized, decentralized program. So if you have a child who qualifies for these services and you want them to have it, but you don't want them to be on the bus for 45 minutes or whatever it is, you have that option at your home school. And if you want to have the uniqueness of centralized, self-contained, gifted programming, then you've got to make that choice. But Shamley, to me, is on the outskirts of town, and that doesn't make any sense if we're wanting a program that pulls from all of our schools. So I don't want to ask the district leadership team for any more information, and we do have a motion and a second on the floor, so.
I would agree with you, Charlotte. I know these are tough choices, and I know that, we want all the information at all times, but it's not fair to burden staff just because we want all things at all times, and we have to make choices at some point in our lives. So we do have a motion, we do have a second, so I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. With an abstention. Motion carries to look at Arredondo specifically. All right, moving to the early education section. We have Site 17 of Evans and Site 18 of Carminati. These two are, equal in terms of their matrices. I suppose the differentiating point here is Evans doesn't have any of our kids there, whereas Carminati does have, students actively there. With that, I'll open up for discussion. Allison.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just to confirm, Evans has some other particular programs, correct? That we would quite possibly then be moving or displacing them that are sensitive
Yes, so.
special programs.
Evans is not vacant. And so if you chose Evans, we would have to find a space for those. We have a MOU and a contract with Desert Choice that provides services for students. So there are actually students at Evans. We have another private provider that rents out space there as well. At least they did last year. Special. And then we have, I want to say Yep. So we have, Evans is not vacant. And so if you chose Evans, then we would have to say, okay, where would those go? And some of the Desert Choices actually has our students that it services as well there.
And just really quick, since you're saying that it's like a third-party type of school, it's still extremely important to our community to have these there because our Tempe Elementary students who are needing a different type of learning environment, they're able to help us offer.
That would be correct.
Charlotte.
And if I remember the presentation, thank you, Mr. President. If I remember the presentation correctly, Evans is a revenue generating site for us.
That is correct.
All right, so in light of being fiscally responsible, I would like to make a motion to place the Early Childhood Center at Carminati so that we can maintain a revenue-generating site and still create the Early Childhood Center.
A motion by Charlotte for Carminati. Do I have a second? Yep. Monica?
I just want to clarify that we're not deciding to place, right? Or can we do that tonight? Or is it the implications?
You do the research.
The whole notice.
I'll second for the implications.
All right, I have any further discussion on this point? All right, with that, I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Middle school, we have a site 22 of Mosley and a site 23 of Fees. These are, again, pretty similarly situated, although this one does have like the kind of flipped thing on the matrix between families and grounds. And with that, I'll open it up for discussion. Sure.
I just want to know if the district leadership team or Dr. Driscoll specifically has a recommendation between these two that they prefer.
Yes, we prefer fees.
And Fees is on the list to be rebuilt anyways, correct?
Correct.
Right. I'd like to make a motion to further research fees for our possible career explorations program.
Second.
I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to 10:01, student activity report. Anything anyone wants to discuss on this? No? Moving on. 11:01, board information. Allison?
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things that I want to bring to everyone's attention is healthcare related. The holidays bring intense stress to a lot of our families. I've had some families who've called me that are in major need, and I've had teachers who have called me that are in major need. And so something that I need to make sure that every single one of our employees knows is that there is free counseling for every single employee in our healthcare program, not in our healthcare program, their wives, people who live in their homes with them, and their children up to 26 years old. There is free counseling that is available, that is anonymous for you. Only you and the healthcare provider that we're providing is there to help you. This is a really stressful time of year financially, emotionally, and I'm sorry I'm getting choked up, but my father died on Christmas Day. And so there's this thing that I relate to other people who have had moments at Christmas where it's supposed to be this holly jolly moment and families come and it's freckles and sunshine, and it's not. And if you don't have a lot of money and Santa doesn't have big presents for you, or you're just trying to get through and now you have 2 weeks where your kids aren't going to have food every single day and you're going to have to find a place to put them because there's not daycare, or you are just emotionally sad. I'm grateful that I am able to be in an environment where there's 1,100 people who have access to something that I don't have, and that is free counseling. So please, please take us up on it. The Health Trust Committee works really hard to make sure that your mental health is the most important thing to us as your teachers and your employees. Sorry that I got emotional on that, but I get to speak to it from the heart, and I want to make sure that people take advantage of it. You're not taking advantage of it, I know, because I get the numbers. So, excuse me, but with that said, the number is 1-800-395-1616. If any of you here know somebody that you see who's struggling or needs help, you're going to tell them to go to 819 on the meeting. Skip through YouTube, go poop, which is going to be what, an hour and 19 minutes. And listen to this number, it's 1-800-395-1616. The whole theme of this month's newsletter is take a break and breathe. That's what I'm doing with you all right now. On another note, we do have this great health program, but it's very, very expensive. And we want to continue to offer a free plan. And in order to do that, we're all going to have to participate in this because, as you've heard, pharmaceutical prices are skyrocketing. They're unbelievably high. We are not senators, so we can't control the cost of drugs. And one day, maybe one of us will be president, but we're not right now. So we can't control the price of drugs. But what we can do is participate all together in talking to our doctors for generics. And it sounds like a really, really little thing of me to ask you, but it's huge. And there's a list that went out in your email that you might not have read because it wasn't as important at that moment for you, to look and see if any of those medications, take them to your doctor and see if he can give you generics. Every bit we pay, we're self-insured, we pay your health claims, not anybody else, it's under Blue Cross Blue Shield. They do the program for us, but they don't pay it for us. It comes out of every dollar that we want to save to give back to you. So if you save us, there's just a drug that I looked at today, it's $900 at Walgreens. The generic of it is $97. And with our health plan, in the second one, I found out it's $7.50. So we pay $7.50. Now that's all a racket in itself. We all know that, right? Like, let that go. But we pay that $9, $10, and you just save the district $900, which means another benefit if we all started to do that we could start adding to our current healthcare plan and help new teachers who are coming in have just as good a plan as we have today for them, for the future. Lastly, there's a blood drive. We're gonna have a lot of families who need our help. It's gonna be at the Brogan Center on December 13th from 7 to 11, at the district office from 12 to 4. I go to the Vitalant event every year to celebrate the amount of blood that our district gives, and it's phenomenal and it's rewarding, and it's, I'm so proud of all of you, so I wanna make sure that you all know of that date. And there's yoga tomorrow at 4 o'clock at Getz. I think it's important, know that there's yoga. And then the Love Your Heart 5K is gonna be on the 15th of February, and I would love for you all to come out. I'm walking, other family members of mine are running. Got some competitive runningness going on, I think, here. Is everybody working out, training, getting ready? I hope so. So don't forget that. Lastly, we're going to the holiday seasons. Talk to your kids about fentanyl. I can't tell you enough about how important it is. Don't use the word "not my kid." It affects all of us. It's very, very cheap. It's very easy to get. Our kids are just as stressed out as we are. And if they see something on their social media that allows them a pill that's gonna make them sleep better, and it's $1.50 and it can be delivered to their home, you and I know that's like a red flag, right? Like red flag record. No, to them, it's like, oh my gosh, my family's fighting, they're totally nervous, we don't have gifts, or we do, and my grandmother's coming over and she doesn't believe politically what my father believes, and this is gonna be a frickin' nightmare, so I'm gonna get a pill. No, like talk to them now about fentanyl. This is the reason why fentanyl is getting into our homes, and it's just important at any age to let them know that they do not accept anything from anyone else, do not order anything online, and how much they're loved, and that you can actually get them help because we provide help for that. And I lost a bet this weekend, so I have to do something. This is gonna be on YouTube, but I have to say, go Devils. And I'm a Wildcat, so my family, they can just go to this YouTube video and say, and I did it, and don't ever ask me to do it again. And with that said, thank you.
Mr. President, I didn't know she was a Wildcat fan.
I am a Wildcat, right?
I mean, it didn't sound like it. She said go Devils, so I think that's on the record.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's
All right.
burning my soul.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's been a busy couple weeks, as it is for everybody right now. And I just appreciate the work that everybody's doing to look to the future. And I hope those kids get good jobs so I can still have Social Security when I retire. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? All righty. Moving on to 12:01, announcements, upcoming events. There will be an agenda committee meeting on Wednesday, December 11th at 11 a.m. The annual Tempe Elementary's Vitalant Blood Drive will take place Friday, December 13th from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Brogan Center and 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. here at the Governing Board Room. There will be a thank you reception for outgoing Governing Board member Monica Trejo on Wednesday, December 18th at 6 p.m. here at the Governing Board Room. The next regularly scheduled Governing Board meeting will take place also on Wednesday, December 18th at 7 p.m. here at the Governing Board Room. The ASBA 67th Annual Conference will be December 19th to the 20th at the JW Marriott Desert Ridge Resort. Winter break will begin December 23rd, 2024. School will resume on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. The Tempe Elementary Love Your Heart 5K, sponsored by TEEA, will be held Saturday, February 15th, 2025 at 8 a.m. at Kiwanis Park. 13:01, meeting adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. We are adjourned.